Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're listening. That's the beauty of podcasting. Welcome into Touchdown in Paradise here on the Fins Talk Sports Network. I'm Justin, and nobody else is here today because it's a very, very big sports night for our podcast. Russ is a Yankees fan. Pete, Joe are all Dodger fans. And I'm here, the Astros fan. Not caring too much, but still a little invested. So right now, it is the middle of Game 4. The Dodgers have a chance to sweep the Yankees in the World Series. So I am the only one here. But that doesn't mean we can't rock it right now. Let's hop right into our last week of college football. Who's your daddy, I say? Indiana wins the Michael Penix Jr. Bowl 31-17 without their starting quarterback. Taven Jackson of the Hoosiers, 124 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Justice Ellison, 123 yards rushing and a touchdown. On the other side with Washington, Will Rogers, 202 yards and 2 picks. Jonah Coleman, just 104 yards on the ground. Nothing big. Lee Corso was honored in Bloomington. He was the head coach of Indiana from 1973 to 82. They even made the day of game day was there, Lee Corso Day in Bloomington, Indiana. You love to see that. We all love Coach Corso. We all know that it might be time for him to officially retire from the show, but we're happy to have him around as long as we can, because we love the guy so much. So the question here is, Indiana still has Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Purdue. How many of those can they win? If I look at the Michigan State game, they're a team that is slowly on the rise, but they're just not there yet. They're in a rebuild mode with the coach, Jonathan Smith from Oregon State. And with that, I feel like Indiana, even though they too have a real coach, their rebuild has just gone that fast. I see this being potentially an easy win, but you have to factor in that Michigan State is the home team. They've got to go up to East Lansing for this. So I'll be very curious to see if Curtis Rourke is healthy. I don't think it should be a problem. But with this Taven Jackson guy going on the road, I don't know. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen here. Michigan, they just don't look like last year. Yeah, new coach. They lost all of their talent. None of these quarterbacks really have shown me that they can play football at a high level. And you can't win these football games without a great offense. You're not the 2015 Denver Broncos. You're not going to get by just off of a good defense. And even so, your defense has been questionable at times. And that one I would still say is a 50-50 because as great as Indiana has looked, how much can we really trust them? Ohio State is Ohio State. We saw how they looked against Nebraska. Not good. Nebraska started giving them fits. Nebraska, too, is a team on the rise. But the question is Indiana ready for Ohio State? Now, one could say, Indiana put up, 51 points in Nebraska, and Nebraska only allowed 21 points to Ohio State, both games on the road. That should tell you something, right? And my answer to that is, yeah, it should tell you something, but it won't tell you the whole story because it's all about the matchups. Who wins in the trenches? Are they going to have big enough guys to match up with those guys for Ohio State in the trenches? That's what I'm looking forward to the most, is seeing that battle. Again, it all really hinges on, is Curtis Rourke healthy? Because if so, we've seen what he could do. Now we've seen a little bit of what Taven Jackson can do. So if he's the guy going forward, we need to see a little bit more before they get to that big test of Ohio State. And then to close out the year, they get rival Purdue, which if you've seen Purdue, they've looked horrible. They've also looked not bad. They got shut out by Oregon. Granted, they're the number one team. They did horribly against Notre Dame. Granted, Notre Dame is pretty good, sans that loss to NIU. And then you look at their game against Illinois, where they put up almost 50 points or something like that. And you think, what Purdue is going to show up in a rivalry game against Indiana? And who knows, if Indiana is undefeated by that time, could we see a 2007 backyard brawl, West Virginia Pitt type of upset? You know they'll be there to ruin it for their rival. That'll be the mindset going into that game. So if you ask me the question that I asked at the beginning of this segment, how many of these games do I see them winning? I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to have them going 3-1 with the loss to Ohio State. Staying in the Big Ten here, the Ducks take care of business against that same Illinois team we were just talking about. Made them look very pedestrian on both sides of the ball, 38-9. Dillon Gabriel, continuing his Heisman campaign, 291 yards and 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. He also had a touchdown rush. Solid numbers against a ranked team. Tez Johnson, still killing it on the receiving end. Bo Nix, Dillon Gabriel, doesn't matter. 106 yards and a touchdown. Lou Goldmeyer for the Illini, 161 yards and 2 picks. The question here is it time to stop doubting Dan Lanning based on their early season struggles? Because now they've shown they're not going to get distracted by their number 1 ranking. And they're not going to get distracted by, yeah, we just beat Ohio State. Yeah, we're at the top. Nope, it's been all business. They've allowed 9 points since the Ohio State game. Not allowing a single point to Purdue, like we just talked about, and then 9 points this week. Their first touchdown allowed. I think it is time. We've seen how great that Dan Lanning can coach. We've also seen how big Dan Lanning can flub in the worst times. But that just seems to be in Oregon's DNA. Have they shed that persona? In the era of NIL, with Phil Knight coming in and saying, I'm going to give you unlimited NIL resources. Just win me a national championship while I'm alive, essentially. That's a very assuring backing for a program, first of all. I'm sure any program out there would love to be backed by the CEO or the founder of Nike, I should say, former CEO. And as far as Illinois, what does this mean for them? They're definitely a solid team, big, physical, the exact way that Brett Bielema builds his teams. So is this program slowly building, not there yet? Or is this their ceiling? That's the question. And I ask this because for a lot of these Big Ten teams, it seems like this has been the ceiling. You look at Northwestern. You look at Indiana before Kirk Cignetti, Coach of the Year, got there. You look at Purdue. You look at Iowa. Yeah, they've won 10 games, 11 games here and there, but would you really take any of those Iowa teams against any other team in Alabama history? Maybe about half of them, sure, but Nick Saban's teams would have run through those guys. It just feels like every Big Ten team that's not Ohio State or Michigan or Michigan State at points or Penn State, they've just got that ceiling that they can't go any further. Brett Bielema, granted, is a bigger name coach than some of the others. Wisconsin, I'm sorry, I forgot to include you in there. But still, I feel like Wisconsin even had a ceiling. Penn State has had a ceiling. It's just been a little bit higher than some of the other ones. Illinois just seems to be at their ceiling of normal right now. Can this program get taken to the next level is the question. Can Brett Bielema bring in some of these dynamic playmakers that are going to the Oregons of the world, the Miamis of the world, Alabamas of the world? You look at Ryan Williams. Can you get a guy like that to your program in Illinois? That's what is going to take them to the next level. And until I see that from them, I'm going to say that this is their ceiling. I'm sorry. I think they have a great progress to this point, but I just don't see it anymore, not in this age of college football. Nobody in the world is prepared for this next segment here. Well, except if you spend some time in College Station, Texas, probably about 2 to 4 years. The Texas A&M Aggies, number 1 in the SEC. A&M downs LSU 38-23 at Kyle Field with only 8 completed passes the whole night. Marcel Reed only threw the ball 2 times, 2 completions for 70 yards, 62 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. Le'Veon Moss on the ground, 83 yards rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns. Connor Weigman did play, albeit, he had 6 completed passes to Marcel Reed's 2. Meanwhile, Garrett Nussmeier, 405 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 picks. He also had a touchdown rush. Aaron Anderson, 129 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. At this point, would you pick Kirk Cignetti or Mike Elko for Coach of the Year? Yeah, Kirk Cignetti bringing all of his guys from JMU over to Indiana. Mike Elko coming in and understanding what that program needed right away. And so far, he's delivering. I'm still riding with Kirk Cignetti. You know that. But Mike Elko, he's right there. And it pains me to say this because I've had a disdain for A&M my whole life. Now, who is this LSU team on the other end? Who are they really? It may just be another Brian Kelly team. We saw this in Notre Dame where they couldn't win the big ones, or they would lose a game that they weren't supposed to. Yet we saw week 1 where they lost to USC at the very end. But LSU's lost week 1 the last 3-4 years, just about. Yeah. It seems like it's on brand this decade, at least for that. Now, I believe one of our guys said last week that if this game was in Death Valley, we would have a much different outcome. Now I'm on record saying they were right. I think it was Joe. When you look at this LSU team, you see a team that can score. You see a team that has trouble stopping the run as well. You see a team that can allow a lot of offense too. LSU is just not the team that we thought they were. They're very good, but they're not great. Going back to the ceiling talk, this seems to be what Brian Kelly's problem is. His ceiling is a lot lower than other coaches. It's up there with just about to be championship pedigree and then falls flat. I can think of him and at this point in his career, maybe Dabo. Yeah, he's won in his past, but do we trust he's going to get back there anytime soon? They've got a solid team this year, but who have they played? Well, let's check in around the league. Brian Kelly's old team, Notre Dame, destroys Navy 51-14 in East Rutherford. And I'll wear the clown nose here and say, Pronto. I picked Navy to lose by maybe a few points. Nope. They hadn't seen a team like Notre Dame yet. That NIU loss continues to not look good, but Notre Dame continues to roll and look good simultaneously. Credit to Marcus Freeman. That's what you have to do. You have to respond in that way. Let them have no doubt about your team. Boise State escapes UNLV 29-24. Ashton Jeanty held to 128 yards and 1 touchdown on 33 carries. Now, isn't it strange that I use the word held to with 128 yards and a touchdown behind it? Because I think so. We've just come to expect so much from this guy that being held to this much just seems a little bit out of the character. But credit to UNLV, they game plans better than any other team has so far. But you still found a way to get into the end zone. And Boise State still found a way to win. Pitt cops 5 interceptions off of Syracuse, including 3 pick sixes. They win 41-13 to stay unbeaten. Now, who had Pitt going undefeated on their bingo card? Anybody? Pat Narduzzi never shook me as the type of coach that could legitimately have a great team. I don't know if it is all that great to where they could threaten a Texas on the neutral field or anything like that, or an Ohio State for the matter. But 5 interceptions. Is Pitt good? Is Syracuse that bad? We'll just have to find out. I believe Pitt plays Clemson later this year, or they play SMU, one of the two. We'll find out later in the show. Ole Miss handles OU. OU has now lost 3 straight games by double digits. First time in a long time. Now, earlier in this year, I did say that Texas was going to be fine in this transition to the SEC, and OU was going to struggle. So far, it's looking like it's playing out that way. Now, granted, Texas is in a better state of the program that OU is ever since Lincoln Riley left town. Texas has seemed to find something with this group, and Sark as the coach. OU, who knows if Brent Venables really can be an elite coach. Yeah, the man knows defense, that's for sure, but it's really not showing. We know he got those rings with Dabo. So where is that boom that Clemson had with their defense back in the day? Maybe there's not enough NIL to go around. Either way, OU has some issues that they need to get cleaned up soon. Otherwise, no pun intended, sooner rather than later. Otherwise, Venables might be shown the door. We already talked about Ohio State surviving Nebraska. It does give me some red flags of Ohio State, especially as they head into Penn State this weekend. We'll talk about that later. Texas escapes the nets set by Vanderbilt and wins 27-24. Now, no, they didn't actually set up nets, and I was a little disappointed by that in reference to the fans throwing the debris on the field when the bad call came. It turned out it was just an internet joke. It would have been hilarious, though. Now, Vanderbilt has proven it can hang with the big boys. But nobody wants to see this Vanderbilt team, that's for sure. Now they're finding their groove, finding their rhythm. What more can they do? We'll have to see. And lastly here, SMU prevails in overtime over Duke, 28-27. They blocked the field goal as time expired. Now they're still unbeaten in ACC play. Their only loss being to a very good BYU team, which kicked my UCF Knights' ass this week. Thank you for relieving Ted Roof of his duties, BYU. The defensive coordinator needed to get out. SMU, hey, they look great. They find ways to win. And in the era of NIL, SMU has the potential of being that Pony Express team like we saw in the old days, the Eric Dickerson days. I know, yeah, they're a much smaller private school, but so is Miami. Boston College had a good run for a while. They're a small private school. Doesn't mean SMU can't get back to that. Look at TCU, went to the national championship a couple years ago. They're a crosstown rival. It's just very cool to see in their first year in the league this much in contention. So credit to the Ponies, credit to Rhett Lashley. I enjoy watching SMU football, finally. Jumping into our parlay picks. This is going to be a really quick show because we want to get back to the action, and it's just me today. Texas A&M at South Carolina. We just talked about those first-place Aggies, and now South Carolina seem to be finding something there after losing that close one to Alabama. A&M's -2.5 on the spread, 44.5 over-under. A&M -130, South Carolina +110. It's very hard to doubt Texas A&M right now. Mike Elko's got those boys rolling. NIL is wheeling and dealing. Give me the Aggies to cover all the way through. And I'm going to take the over just because both teams do know how to score. Pitt at SMU. That's right. This was the matchup. This is the chance. Pitt, can you beat a ranked team? The game is in Dallas, where SMU is a 7.5-point favorite. The over-under here is 59. SMU -310 money line. Pitt +250. We've seen that Pitt can win ugly. They can come back and win close. We've seen that they could blow out teams. mostly on the defensive side. SMU, we've seen them win in every facet of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. Not to mention the game is in Dallas, not like I mentioned that 2 minutes ago or less. So I'm going to pick the Ponies. In fact, I think this is not going to be close. I'm going to pick SMU to blow the doors off of Pittsburgh here in Dallas. Taking the over, taking the Ponies right there with the money line. Let's go, SMU. Oregon at Michigan. Now, why would I be paying attention to the number one team in the nation against an unranked team? Well, because Oregon's going on the road to the Big House. They're a 15.5-point favorite on the road. Over-under's a little low, 45.5, but that's to Michigan's ineptitude to score. They did just come off a win against little brother Michigan State, as they like to call them. UO, minus 750 money line, plus 525. As much as I'd like to say Michigan will make this a game, they haven't proven to me that. I could see Oregon going in there and winning by 30 easily, making a mockery of this Michigan program. Now down Harbaugh, now down a quarterback, now down one of their two great running backs, all from last year. Dillon Gabriel and co are going to go in there and rock the Big House. Big House rock. Give me the Ducks. Give me the cover. I think it could be a shutout or a very low-scoring side on the Michigan end. So I'll have Oregon winning 34-3, and I'll take the under. And Oregon money line, obviously. And now for the game of the week. Ohio State at Penn State. This game has always brought us a good matchup. Ryan Day, James Franklin. James Franklin, again, it seems to be like one of those coaches that, as just a rung below Brian Kelly level, he's got an elite program that can't win the big games. Kind of where Clemson was for so long until they finally broke through and beat Florida State in 2015. Ohio State's a minus 4-point favorite on the spread. Over-under is 47. Ohio State minus 192 money line. Penn State plus 160. I feel like I'd be foolish to just take all of these favorites. But Penn State might have a secret weapon here in their backup quarterback who came in the game. He might be a better fit than Drew Aller. You know it's going to be a big-time crowd there. They're going to be super loud. I don't know if this is the whiteout game, but it'd be really cool if it was. I think Penn State's going to do it. They'll beat Ohio State this week. Based on what I've seen from Ohio State, when they played Big Ten competition, particularly elite Big Ten competition, Oregon, they lose close. They're still competitive, sure. Nebraska, okay, let me rephrase that. Not elite competition there, but a program that's on the rise and growing. But you barely escaped that at home. And now you're telling me they've got to go to Penn State with a team full of young guys and a transfer quarterback? Now, I know that Will Howard did say he wanted to go to Penn State, and they said, oh, you're not good enough for us. So he wants to prove something. And that emotion will be the one thing that carries Ohio State through it. But I'll take the Nittany Lions. I'll take the Nittany Lions. Give me Penn State on the spread. Taking the under here because we've seen trouble for Ohio State scoring. Penn State scores decently well. But I just feel like this is going to be a closer game. And then Penn State money line. Let's go. I cover the week here in our next segment. Texas Tech versus Iowa State. Iowa State had a bye. Yep. they also look very bad against a very bad UCF team. We almost beat them, but Gus chose to lose. Yes, Gus chose to lose that game. You won't convince me otherwise. It's a plus 14 super dog here. I'll take that cover any day. Sure. Texas Tech still knows how to score. They nearly beat TCU last week. And that was my upset of the week last week, which unfortunately I missed. Watching UCF in Arizona. And I'll be honest, the only reason I'm watching is it's the space game. Can we win? Can we work our space game magic and win? Last year we did do a 15th ranked Oklahoma State when we were pretty bad for our first Big 12 win. Hey, I'll take that. Let's go, UCF. Come on. Ted Roof is gone. Gus, what are you going to do? We'll look here at the Heisman race. We mentioned Ashton Jeanty swarmed by UNLV, but he still managed that 128 yards and a touchdown. Dillon Gabriel, we also talked about trending toward the top spot with those 4 touchdowns and a pick. How about this, though? Cam Ward held without a touchdown pass, but he did have a touchdown reception in the win versus Florida State. I don't know if that fits well with those Heisman voters. Yeah, Cam Ward is amazing, but is Crystal Ball the coach that's going to put the ball in his hands and give him the best chance to score even against their rivals? And let alone their bad rivals. So when he can't score through the air, he'll have to score with his hands and catching the touchdown. Is that what you're telling me, Mario? Is that what you're trying to tell us? That you're just going to try and get him in the end zone one way or another? Like that kind of performance, not going to cut it for getting him to New York. I still think he'll make it, but if he wants to leave New York with some hardware, I just don't see it right now. Travis Hunter is still up there playing ridiculous amounts of snaps, 8 receiving touchdowns. He's a beast. What else can we say? We've never seen a Travis Hunter before. We just don't know how to, in our own minds, quantify and translate that to how much impact a quarterback has or running back has, receiver has. He does part-time receiving, but he's also part-time on defense. Very, very impressive. He's got to be near the top, right? I'd probably put him above Cam Ward at this point. And Dylan Sampson from Tennessee was idle this week. He'll be back in action this week. But that's going to do it for me here. My cheer of the week, Dillon Gabriel. I mentioned you a couple times. I'm sorry I doubted you. You left us, and now I see why. The greener pastures up in Oklahoma, where you did great, and the greener pastures, even greener, up in Oregon. You're now the second all-time touchdown passer in college football history. We know Case Keenum had a lot of time. We know that there's going to be a lot of people who spend 6 years in college. But hey, congratulations, because Dillon, you made the most of your time. You found life at UCF. You almost found life at UCLA. You found some life at Oklahoma, and you're finding greatness and glory at Oregon. I picked you at the beginning of the year for the Heisman. I hope that you can make me right in the end. I also picked Oregon to win the national title this year, which personally I would love to see. A school that's never been there before get it done. And by been there, I mean, yes, they've been to the title game a couple times in the last decade plus, but they didn't get it done. I'd love to see them get it done for once. Be that team on top. Just get it done. But thank you for tuning in for this shortened solo episode of Touchdown in Paradise. I'm Justin, and this is the Fins Talk Sports Network. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this with all your friends. Y'all have a great day. I hope to see y'all next week with a full-on squad here. Enjoy.